Today's reality check, we answer the question, why am I struggling and what can I do about it? Now, let's start with this model, which I love, which breaks this down in terms of how things happen anywhere on an individual or an organizational basis for yourself or for someone you care about. It comes down to these three areas: willingness, ability, and capacity. Now, willingness is the answer to the question, why? Why does this matter? Why are we doing this? And am I sufficiently willing to do what it takes, whatever it takes, to make this happen? It's a tricky question because you don't really know what it's going to take, or what it might have taken yesterday is now today insufficient. So we're constantly asking and re-answering this question of willingness. But if you are willing, then we move to the next question of ability, which is, what does it take to make this happen? Now, those are the skills, the tools, the knowledge, the people and partnerships that you'll need to gain in order to execute. And we can map that course. We can work that plan and get there. But there's a third limiting area in terms of your capacity. That's the answer to the question, but how much? How much can you handle? How much can you take? And how much do you have in terms of time, money, thought, energy to dedicate to this pursuit? Now, we can look at those as fixed and finite, or fluid, which in some ways they are. Regardless, this is all that happens anywhere in the world, is the overlap between what you're honestly willing to do, you've developed the ability to pull it off, and the capacity within yourself or within your team to accomplish this. Now, that's the equation. And it is a solid equation that works in order to achieve goals, whether they be positive outcomes, certain accomplishments, healthy relationships, success in any measure, and personal growth, including moving through a process of recovery. So we'd like to think we have abundance of all of these areas all the time, but that's not the case in reality. For example, if you have a lack of willingness, that means in some ways, even if you have the ability and the capacity, you're pretending. You're wasting time. Maybe you have the wrong goal. You're certainly not being helpful. And perhaps the plan is to just let this go, to address your unwillingness and open up to what you're actually willing to do. If that's not an option, you've got to develop it. You've got to become more willing by finding purpose and meaning, by recommitting, taking personal ownership. And maybe in some instances, we need to suffer and sacrifice in order to find that next level of willingness. Or if you are willing and you have capacity, but you lack certain ability, this just means you're learning. However, if you're in a position of authority, this can be dangerous. There's a word of caution here. And sometimes that happens. The people who are eager and have the capacity get the job, but they have to understand that there's a gap. Identify the gap. Be precise. Get to work. Stay humble and honest. Maybe get help and measure your progression through this journey. It's a great place to be. Now, lacking capacity is also something we experience all the time. You're overloaded. You become the bottleneck in the situation. The quality diminishes over time. Even if you're willing and you have the abilities, you have to give and take somewhere. And so you're stressed out. The people around you are stressed out. What do you got to do? Well, you have to decrease your load or increase capacity. You have to get more realistic in terms of the objectives and the timelines. And maybe you need to reduce your willingness in some areas to focus on what is truly important. My friends, bottom line is we just need to get real. We need to get honest with ourselves. And then we need to get to work. Get to work on what truly matters, because you can't do it all, but you can do more of what matters most. I hope that helps. Until next week, stay off balance on purpose.